Hi, my name is Peter. This channel is called Peter on Health, and this video is called Money versus Health. So I said in my last week's video I was going to do this video next week, and during the week, on YouTube, and YouTube recommended the video I'm going to show you, and I don't know if Google's spying on me or whatever, but and I also have a headset on. My computer speakers are very good. I'm going to take it off once I play about a minute of this clip, but these guys are on the same page about me regarding money versus health.
Record was this recent article that's come out, which has kind of shocked the intermittent fasting world. And it's the idea, and it's a study that's funded by or put out by the American Heart Association. And it's the idea that that 8-hour time restricted eating has been linked to a 91% higher risk of cardiovascular death. So doing 16/8 in the intermittent fasting supposedly has been linked to 91% increased risk of cardiovascular disease. And just to give more context for everybody listening, there was 20,000 people in this study. So that makes it sound like this was a very legit study. So I'm going to leave that there. Tomo, what do you make of that?
So I will tell you right now that I personally do not trust the American Heart Association at all, because if you look at some of their historical studies, you look at some of their funded studies that they have signed off on, they factually are the complete opposite of what they're stating. So, people are like, oh, well, how can you go against the American Heart? They are the people for heart health. They're not. Half their shit is funded by, by big pharma. Half their stuff's funded by big food. And again, what did you just say before that? American Heart.
Yeah, so, and big pharma, big food, and all that stuff. So I'm going to take my headset off now, so I'm not going to play any more videos. Hope that didn't crackle too much. It's a little more comfortable without. I have these air headphones, but I didn't want EMFs or whatever. But anyway, so I watched the video. It was a pretty cool video, the two guys, and so they're talking about fasting, right? And I was saying last week how you do fasting and you spend less money. It's not about money. I also said last week about me. I don't spend any money on. I don't take any supplements, and I don't take any pharmaceuticals. So I'm not spending any money on that stuff. And I eat one meal a day. Unlike like today, I went to a party, so I ate twice. But um, the other cool thing about fasting, I'll just say, it gives you a mulligan, to eat twice or crap your food or whatever. Your body within a day or so will return you to your regular weight. But anyway, at least that works that way for me. But so I eat one meal a day. So over a course of maybe an hour. So 23 hours of it, I'm spending no money at all on food. None. Zilch. And I'm not, like I say, taking any pharma or, supplements even. I'm going to do another video one time what I have against supplements. But, I mean, I may be one of one, but, and I've showed this graph before. And it's a graph of my chronological age graphed against my biological age. There it is. Took a while to pop up. So the blue again is chronological. I am 61 as I'm speaking to you now. I started getting these blood tests at 43. Every year I've gotten a blood test, and according to a paper, these are my biological ages, the red line, right? And what I did was a trend line through it, and what I explained last week is the slope of this trend line is 0.22, and that means I am aging at a rate of something like 11 weeks per year, so I guess what would that be, like kind of mid-March? I'm aging, January 1 to about mid-March, and then I stop aging the whole rest of the year. I'm like Peter Pan, just like stuck at the same biological age. And that's pretty remarkable, you know what I mean, that I can do that. And I just want to show you something I did this week. I was just kind of curious to see what my rate of aging was pre-fasting. So I think I mentioned to you guys that this drop here, this is 2020, the darkest days of COVID land, and this is a 6-year drop in my biological age in 1 year. 1 year I dropped 6 years in biological age, and the only change I made that year was fasting. I ate the same food, same sleep habits, same exercise habits. So it wasn't about any of the others. All I did was say, okay, I'm going to eat in a time restricted window. And that window for 2020 was a 4 hour window. I wasn't doing OMAD. I would eat a big breakfast and then try to force down some more food before the 4 hour window closed, like a Kmart special. And just doing that, my biological age dropped 6 years. So what I wanted to see was what's the trend line up until the time I started fasting. And so this is a graph that it cuts off at the age of 57, which is when I started. This is the year 2020 when I started fasting, right? And so I was, at this year, I was 46 biologically, right? You could see I dropped down to 40. That's the 6-year drop. But anyway, I was biologically 46 at this year. So if I do a trend line, it's pretty much 6/4. So there's 14 years, 2006 to 2020, and there's a 6-year jump because this is closer to 40, and this is closer to 46. Whereas up here, this is like 41, and this is 45. So there's a four difference in the vertical. This is more like a 6 difference in the vertical, and even less years. And I computed that, so that's like 6/14, which is more than double 0.22. More than double. It's almost 0.5. It's like 0.46 or something. So just think of that. Like up until I was 57, I was aging at a slow rate, like less than half a year per year, which is pretty awesome, right? Like everybody else, 1 year passes, you might age 2 years, you might age 1 year, you might be like same, but my biological age back then, my rate of aging was slower than most people I've ever met, or whatever, according to this spreadsheet. I was aging at a rate of less than half a year. But 1 year of fasting and then continuing that for 2 more years, and it yanked that rate of aging from almost a half to almost a fifth, like down to 0.22, right? So I'm just like, like fasting did that, right? And so this idea that fasting is going to give me cardiovascular disease, well, let's just go to the spreadsheet again, and let's look at what the numbers are, what the blood metrics are. And I'm going to do a longer video on this because I saw. I'm going to go and show C-reactive protein, but I'm going to show a video I also saw. YouTube recommended it to me, just kind of curious. But anyway, it was an interview between Rhonda Patrick and Morgan Levine, who was the chief researcher on this 2018 paper from which this spreadsheet is based, okay? And Rhonda asked a really good question. She said, well, okay, this is your general biological age, but what about, the aging of your your liver and kidneys, let's say, or your heart, let's say, or your immune system, let's say. So those are the 3 examples she gave, and lo and behold, albumin and creatine are liver kidney numbers, C-reactive protein is a heart number, and the rest of these are immune system numbers. So, like, it was right in the thing, and that's what Levine should have said. Oh, funny you should mention those 3 organs. They're like straight out of the thing. But anyway, like C-reactive protein is a heart measure. It's actually a measure of heart inflammation. And let's see over time, like what happened to my C-reactive protein. I haven't looked at this. Let's just look at it. I was curious, right? So 2024, it's a fasting year. So I'll walk through the tabs and let's just see what my C-reactive protein is. Because if the AMA is right, we should see that C-reactive protein kind of getting higher over the fasting years. So let's just have a look. So it's 0.32 in 2024. It is 0.31, so it did grow from 23 to 24. Let's see 22. 0.79, look at that. That's like almost, what, double, triple? Let's see, 2021, also a fasting year. Oh, it was low, 0.27. Let's see, 2020, that was before I started fasting. It was 0.27. Let's see, it was 0.97 in 2019. 0.5. 1.16, look at that. That's the highest inflammation. And this is all pre-fasting, right? And 0.35, that's more like the fasting years. Looks like it bounced around. 0.2, that's probably the lowest. No, it's just kind of interesting, to see. Like basically the story is it was bouncing around in the prior years. Let's see, 2013, 1.05, much higher than 0.32. Down to 0.24. So basically you could see 0.2, 0.31, 0.35. Now I'm getting younger and younger here. I'm in my 40s. 0.18, 0.15, 0.49. Yeah, so basically, what this shows, this is the first time I've looked at it. If we were to graph just the C-reactive protein, we could see it went anywhere from 0.18, I think was the lowest, to 1.35, which was the highest. And it was bouncing, 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 bouncing through all the pre-fasting years. But I get into the fasting years, and other than that 0.79, I think it was in 2022, 0.79, all the rest are like 0.27, 0.31, and 0.32. So those are kind of steadily lower, right? So I'm just saying, like, did the fasting look like it was, going to give me heart disease, like, and should see that C-reactive protein number being growing and growing and growing with the fasting, right? And approaching, some of those high numbers I had in the prior years, like 1.01, 1.35, but it hasn't, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, but again, that's me. But anyway, but this is actual data I'm showing you. I'm actually showing you data, right? So that's studied by the AMA, like funded by the AMA, like fasting is going to give you heart disease. 91% of people who do fasting, maybe I'm part of the lucky 9%. I doubt it. I think I'm part of the lucky 99% who get healthier from fasting, including heart, including diabetes, including cancer, including all the diseases of aging. So, this is the money. So I will say this, there's Substack, right? And there's this person I subscribe to, and they call their I hate the word they, I'm going to call this person a she, by the way, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But this person is anonymous. It's a doctor, and this doctor calls their Substack the forgotten side of medicine. And it's the only Substack I currently subscribe to. I used to subscribe to all the so-called conspiracy theory doctors, McCullough, Corey, on and on, right? And my reason was more about tithe. Like it was like, like you go to church and you give like a donation. I just was like, I love these guys. Like they're going against, the propaganda. And I just wanted to like give them a little bit of money. But I was subscribed to like what Steve Kirsch I was subscribed to, and it's just like too many, too many. But I kept this one person because this one person um, uh, does submits like one or two articles a week, and they're not just like little pithy, few paragraph articles. This person writes, back in the days like pre-COVID, I subscribed to the New York Times, and I love the New York Times magazine. And you get these long, in-depth articles that go deep, deep, deep into a subject. And I learned lots reading that. I remember reading Pollan's, work, on food and different things, Gerald Pollan, and he would write in the New York Times magazine, and I just loved it. And I was always wanting to like just subscribe to the magazine, not the newspaper, but you couldn't do that. I pay $7 a month, I think, for this person, and that's what I've been willing to pay for the New York Times magazine back then. Now I won't even pay, like, you can't pay me to read that freaking piece of propaganda. But I'm saying this person, $7 a month, I get eight to 10 articles a month. So more than like, and they're long. Some of them are like 50 pages, some of them are 30 pages. Like, I mean, these are long, in-depth articles, and I learned tons from this person. And one thing I'll say, when this person calls their Substack the forgotten side of medicine, what's been forgotten? Oh, it's been forgotten that our own bodies have natural healing properties so long as we give it the right input. Okay? And so fasting is one example of that. Hey, if you just like time restrict your eating and have a longer fasting period, you can maybe get into autophagy, you can get metabolically flexible, you can fight off cancer, you can fight off diabetes, you can do a bunch of things, right? But according to the AMA, you'll die of heart disease, the money interest, right? And but this person doesn't just talk. I think they definitely talk fasting, but they've talked every freaking subject. It seems like in space of healthcare. And one of the recent articles this person published, and I'll call it a she. And I'll tell you why right now why I think this is a she. So I travel internationally. From time to time, I travel to Europe, and when I come back, and I have to go through customs, and I look and see, there's maybe like 6 lines, and you get to pick which line you're going to go in. And there's a man, there's a woman, there's a man, there's another woman. I always pick a man line, never pick a woman's line. Why? Because the women are too damn thorough. They're doing their jobs. The men are just like, hey, do you have a good trip? Good. Take care. Keep going. The women, where'd you go? Who'd you see? What'd you do? What'd you buy? Like, like they're doing their job, right? And their line moves like really slow. I think there's something female. Now, is it cultural? Is it biological? I don't know. We haven't teased that out yet, but I'll just say in my 60-year experience, the median man versus the median woman feels much greater obligation to whatever they're doing than a man. Man is much more selfish. Woman is much more thorough than a man. Man will be like, no, that's good enough. Woman will be like, no, I have to like do it all, right? And so as I read this person's article and I think, okay, that's a good ending point, they go on to another subject and another subject and another subject. And so I end up printing out the articles rather than read them online because I don't want to stare at the screen this long. And I read them like books. Like I fold them into, like I print two pages on both sides, so four pages per paper, right? And I just fold it and, just read it like a book, right? And I'm just saying these are as good as any books I've read. And the one I want to like go into on this video about money versus health is this recent one this person wrote called Natural Light is an Essential Nutrient. And this is a really long article. I sent it to a bunch of friends and It's interesting, what I got back from some of them. But two thing, two things I learned. I learned something I'd never heard before. Never heard before. I'd heard long ago that through our skin, sun hits our skin. As long as we're not wearing sunscreen, we can get vitamin D from the sun. I learned that, I think, 20 something years ago at those Palo Alto longevity meetings. Right? There was graphs that people were showing about cancer incidence, and basically sunny places had less cancer incidences than less sunny places, except for the cities in the sunny places because everybody lives indoors. And then the cancer incidence was just as high as it was anywhere else. So basically, sunlight is anti-cancer, and that's completely opposite. This forgotten medicine person, this probably woman, has written a lot about the dermatological industry and just how this pushing, like, stay out of the sun will give you cancer, is just like flat out bullshit. Yeah, it might give you benign skin lesions that you might have to get whatever, but lack of sunlight, that'll give you the malignant, metastatic cancers. That's what this person writes about in this article. But what I want to talk about not was cancer so much, but uh, two. This is so long. I'm going to go near the bottom here. Yeah, here we are. Liquid crystal in motion and, oh no, yeah, liquid crystal in motion. Go to that. They say that there's basically what this article says, and this is following on to a fellow named John Ott, who lived from 1909 to 2000 and did a whole bunch of research and basically said wearing sunglasses will give you cancer. Like if that's what you do outside all the time, wear sunglasses, you associate it with cancer. And there's lots of stories and different studies about that, and just how when we're outside, we need to have our eyes get UV light. Don't look at the sun, but the sun bounces off everything, right? If you see a green tree, that's because the light is bouncing off and you're getting green um, wavelengths into your eye from that, and then from the pavement, black, and then whatever. And those are the visible wavelengths. So as you look and you see trees and roads and cars and this and that, well, those are all the visible wavelengths. And then at one end of the invisible wavelengths, sort of small, faster, smaller frequencies, higher frequencies, are the UV, ultraviolet. And there's UV A, B, C, and I guess C is trapped by the atmosphere, but UVA and UVB make it through the atmosphere, and UVB is the one that gives us vitamin D when it hits our skin. So I learned that, like 20 years ago, right? So yeah, the reason to be outside in the sun, vitamin D, duh. And we saw, during COVID, like vitamin D was really important to living or dying, whether, you got COVID and whether you're in the hospital or you died or not. And I thought that was all there was to the sun. And then I read this article, and what the John Ott said, and this researcher went further, is to say, oh no, there's a second thing going on. The sun doesn't just hit our skin; it hits our eyes, the whole cornea, all the way to the retina at the back through the optic nerve, and it was UV, and then also by the other end of the scale is infrared. Infrared, so below red, red is kind of like at the one end of the color scale, and then there's infrared, and so again, infrared is like coming through our eyes, and UV is coming through our eyes, not by looking at the sun, but it bounces off things. Aluminum especially is a good bouncer offer of these frequencies. And what happens is the light will come into our eyes, and because our eyes are transparent, it comes in like a freeway. Like whereas like if it hits our skin, it might only go in, just to the epidermis, like the skin area, and then do its little magic to generate vitamin D. But coming in the eyes, it'll come right through the eye, right through the optic nerve, and right through the body, right? And that's what they write in this article, and they've proven that. And why don't I do the easy one first? Because liquid crystalline motion is even more a deeper subject, which I learned about from this author. But and they say, here's this article where and that was the article I read where I learned about it, and this guy named Gerald Pollack, I bought a couple of his books because of this author, right? But let's just go down here. This one, blood conducts light. So that's the other thing. So the thing is, so light is coming into our eyes, UV and infrared, and it's coming in the form of photons, right? Light energy. And the photons can go, they say, right through our optic nerve and down into our bloodstream throughout our body. And those photons can be turned into electrons and used in the electron transport chain, or I guess it's called the Krebs cycle, within the mitochondria. And the mitochondria are like the batteries of our body. And they need electrons. There's an electron transport chain in that energy production of ATP that is used. So basically, being out in the sun energizes us. Energizes us if we're not wearing sunglasses. Or even any kind of glasses that are just flat out glasses that don't let UV rays pass through. I think there are polarizing lenses that let UV through. They're a little more expensive, but if you insist on wearing glasses, and if I was going to wear glasses outside, I would get those. I'd make sure they were the kind of lenses that allowed through UVA, UVB, and infrared. And so that's one thing. Light through the eyes, which is like the biggest freeway of light anywhere in our body, into the whole body, sending photons, which can be turned into electrons for the electron transport chain and give us energy. So number one, that's like a huge, huge uh, reason to be out in the sun. Give you energy. The other reason is this other tricky, more complicated one, and I think that's going to take a whole video on its own to explain what this is. And I didn't know about it until I read about it in this person's Substack. And what this is about is what this Gerald Pollack person, he was a professor, and maybe still is, out of the University of Washington in Seattle. And he did tons of research, and he's written many books about what he calls the fourth phase of water. Right? You got solid ice, you got liquid water, and you got steam out of your kettle, like that's gaseous water. Right? So gas, liquid, and solid. And he says there's a fourth phase, which is more like a gel, somewhere between solid and liquid. And there's interesting things about the gel is that basically there's a surface that is hydrophilic, it loves water, and then what'll happen, and if if it's getting infrared light at a certain bandwidth, frequency, it'll energize water to split off proteins and then create a negative version of water that's attached to the surface, and they will form a lattice, and they'll be negatively charged. And right next to them are the group of proteins they threw up, which is positive. And what is a negative field next to a positive field? That's called a battery, right? That's how batteries work. And the energy for this is infrared light. That's the main source, and a certain frequency. I think it was in this article. That's what this graph is about. This is what Pollack showed. He said this one projected for standard, basically this frequency, infrared somewhere here is, this is projected for standard intensity, and this is, but the peaks are right at this point, this particular frequency, and that we get that from the sun. And so anyway, what is this? What's the value of this? Clotting. That's what this author, because he's a doctor, clotting. So what happens in our cells, blood cells, lymph cells, interstitial fluid, other, we can get clotting that happens. And what this author believes, and I bet you it's true, is that a lot of clotting comes from different toxins that are positively charged. And the positive charges clump up this liquid crystalline water. And so a lot of people, in the conspiracy crowd said the spike of the COVID virus, and of course, because they copied it for the jabs, among its many bad properties, is that it was positively charged. And so if it got loose in the body, might cause clumping. And so what sunlight does is provide the frequency to help unclump those things by having this liquid crystalline, form, so basically breaks up the clumps and keeps things flowing. I mean, we're supposed to be flowing bodies, blood flowing, lymph flowing, interstitial. I mean, all of it just flowing, flowing, flowing. Nerve signals. It's all like anywhere like things stop. It's like, me sitting here for this long on this video. I need to get up and move around. Like, we're not meant to be like lumps on a stump, right? And our body inside is the same way. Things need to flow. And when things clump, again, one of the best things, well, free thing, you can go to your doctor, and maybe even if they agreed with any of this, well, they'll give you a medication, they'll give you some surgery, they'll give you something that costs money. And what this person is writing, the forgotten side of medicine, get out in the sun, you motherfucker, like, and do that. Now, I'll conclude this video with two things. One thing is what this author said. Yeah, there we go. It's this section here, right near the end. Okay, this person is saying basically, for some people, here's what I'm saying. Oh, yeah, we need to be out in the sun. We need to be out in the sun. And, it'll give us energy, ATP, photons. That's where I'm reading through this article. And it'll, break up all clumps and, make us, young again and biologically young and whatever, right? Get rid of all that inflammation. And but am I saying that to you? I don't know who you are listening. Are you an obese person who is, on your deathbed? Are you a young obese person who's just lived a toxic life your whole life? Are you a cancer recovering person? Are you a, autoimmune person? I don't know who's listening to this. Not many people, I'll tell you that much right now. But I'm just saying that what this is a doctor, they're saying is, one's tolerance to sunlight, how long that, basically is maybe not good. So presently I've identified two models to explain why many have lost the ability to metabolize sunlight. So this is about metabolism, right? Like, what I'm saying is, get out in the sun and then you get the photons, which turn into electrons for the Krebs cycle. Get out in the sun so you get the infrared, the right frequency that'll generate the liquid crystalline, positive flow of the batteries that just keep the flow going, and everything. And but some people will get out in the sun and it wouldn't do any of that because they're so far gone, their body can't metabolize these frequencies from the sun. So she says two reasons why people might have trouble going out in the sun. This first one is your body is so clumped that this in turn leads to fluids at the surface of the skin becoming overexposed, overheated, the surrounding tissue getting sunburned. Basically, you're too clumped, and just getting out in the sun, and you get that infrared and you get the liquid crystalline. But the problem is there's so many clumps, you're so far gone that it might just like F you up. So that's one thing she's saying. And another thing she's saying is if the mitochondria are unable to adequately perform that function, to turn photons into electrons for the Krebs cycle, which sadly is often the case, is mitochondrial dysfunction is now one of the most common chronic illnesses in our society that will result in a bottleneck occurring with an electron, which in turn creates both reductive stress and relates energy. Basically, it'll fuck you up. Basically, so what I'm saying is like, get, what I read in this article, I would just say, okay, well, I'll get out in the sun and I will get the light in my eyes as photons. It'll go through my body and, come into the mitochondria and give me, energy and blah, blah, blah. Woo, woo, let's just do it. What this person is writing is, yeah, if you got mitochondrial dysfunction, like you don't have energy, you wake up in the morning and you have to just drag yourself out of bed. You don't have motivation, you don't have physical energy. You should exercise, but you really don't want to. And then when you start, you're just fatigued, and then you do it, and you're like, oh, you should feel good, but you're fatigued. You're one of those persons. You might be the person in this paragraph who, like, out in the sun, and the photons are coming in your eye, and they're hitting the mitochondria, and there's like a backup in the mitochondria. And suddenly you're getting, instead of nice photon electron movement, you're getting a backup, and it's going bing, 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 and hitting your mitochondria, which are already dysfunctional, and making it more dysfunctional. So, I'm just saying, be cautious, and know thyself. That's one of the key things about being healthy without money. Now, I'll just say the reason it works for me is I'm 61. I've spent my life in the sun. My earliest memory is as a 4-year-old boy, and my sisters are in school, and I'm on the back porch. It's September, and we got the warm sun that's hitting the back porch, and my mother's in the kitchen making food for me, and I feel the love of my mother, who's making food for me and taking care of me, and I've associated it with the warmth of the sun. And so my mother's been dead for, I don't know, 20 years, and I still feel that. I get out in the sun, and I feel that warmth on my skin, and I feel the love of my loving mother, right? And so, like, psychologically, like, it's good. Physically, it feels great. I definitely feel energetic, like what I'm saying, and so maybe that's the mechanism through the eyes, photons, electron transport chain, and I'm super effing healthy according to these biological age spreadsheet, right? And I wouldn't be that healthy with all these healthy numbers unless I had good flow in my lymph and my blood and all that. So I'm just saying to you is it's our birthright as humans, as long as we drive our own buses properly, to get ourselves into a state in which we can not eat at the age of 61 for 23 hours a day, or a whole day, or 2 days, or 3 days, like whatever. Our bodies, it's our birthright to be able to do that. It's our birthright to get out in the sun. Don't pay any money to be out in the sun. Just get out there. Expose our skin to the sun to get vitamin D. Don't get burnt. Don't get burnt. Burning is not good. But get out there, even in the shade. You're going to get the UV and infrared bouncing off your eyes in the shade, right? It doesn't mean you have to be out in the actual sunlight when you're outside. You just need to get the actual, because it won't, like, I'm indoors and I got glass windows. UV ain't going to come into this house. I need to be outside. And I could be in the shade outside for this stuff, like the bouncing lights, the bouncing waves coming through my eyes. So, but what I'm saying is, I've spent my life in the sun. spent my life in the sun. And when I started fasting at the age of 57 in 2020, I tried 3-day fasts decades before that. I think I was in my mid 30s when I first tried a 3-day fast. I heard it from my sister. So I'd been playing with that, and I noticed, okay, the first day of fasting, I'm like starving at night, and if I could just get by that night, then, like I said, the second morning, I think on a previous video, it was like, whoa, it's magical. So anyway, so that's what I'm saying. Pump the brakes on the sun. But again, like those are two things I talked about in this video: fasting and the sun. Zero is that what it cost you. It cost you zero not to eat, and then zero to get in the sun. And those are likely two of the things that I had to guess. Aside from my really good sleep habits and my eating habits and all exercise, that gives me a 0.22 biological aging rate, which means if I'm going to get cancer or heart disease or whatever, it's a long way off. It's a long, long way off for me. And let me finish this video with a book. I didn't read the whole book, but I read enough of it to really get the gist of it. When I say about the money and those guys at the beginning video were talking about the money and the money interest, and they're just like on the complete opposite side of health. There's this guy named Oswald Spengler who wrote this book like 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago. It was during the World War One, and he wrote a book called The Decline of the West. And I found it persuasive. I mean, he dove into three major civilizations, he called them. The West, which he said was founded around 1000 AD in England, and we're 1,000 years into it, 2000 now, more than that, as of now. So we're like at the very tail end of 1,000 years. And then he also talked about the Greek Romans. The Greeks are about 500 BC, and they bled in. They were the early part of the Roman Empire, and then the Romans took over and conquered the known world back then, and they ended, the Visigoths and everybody stormed Rome around 500 AD. So that was another 1,000 years. And then he talked about the Arab Muslim Empire, which goes from around 700 AD, Muhammad and those people in the desert in Saudi Arabia, and they turned into this empire that ran at its peak from Spain all the way to, I don't know, China, like, or whatever, right? Like, I mean, it was an enormous empire. And, the Mongol hordes coming into Europe, that was part of that. And what he said was, he said many, many things, and it just was such a hard book to read, but I got the gist of it. He said that every one of these, he called them cultures or civilizations or whatever, and he said that each of them had a meme, a particular idea that informed not just the politics, not just the war, but the architecture, the mathematics, the art, the literature, everything, okay? So, for the ancient Greek Roman one, he said it was something like the point present. So like they had, like their mathematics had no zero, because there's no zero in what you see, But they're like, if you see it, it exists, and if you don't see it, we don't talk about it. It was like point present. And so they loved the human body form that you could see, and they had these erotic statues of young men and women, and that's what their art was. Anyway, the Arab culture, the 700 to 1700 culture, he said the meme was the cave or the dome. And that was found in the architecture of, the mosques, and, it found its way also in literature and metaphorically, and then in the mathematics, did hit infinity and zero and all that. And so the West, and I always ask my friends this, You know, when I give them those two, and I go, okay, if the West is a civilization that started in England around 1000 AD and is ending in America in around 2000 AD, what's the meme? What's the meme of it? And when I tell you what it is, it'll be obvious. The meme is infinity. Infinity. Where do you see infinity? Stock charts. Up and to the right. They're not supposed to come down. They're not supposed to cycle. We don't have cycles in an infinite meme. We have up and to the right always. This longevity stuff, we're going to get humans to live forever. We're going to merge transhumanism with computers and whatever, and our consciousness will live forever. This idea of living forever, to me, is hideous. It's absolutely hideous. When I talk about health and I talk about my slow biological age, right? Like over here, I'm not talking about, oh, woo, you know, and I got the GG on the FOXO3, you know, SNP, whatever. Like, woo, woo, I'm going to be alive in my hundreds, you know? I'm just saying that because that's what the researchers show. Is that my goal? No. My goal is to wake up every morning with boundless energy in my mind, in my heart, and in my legs, and in my body. I want to wake up with appetite. I want to wake up with verve. And if I do that, I don't care how long I last, but I definitely don't want to last forever because I've seen value in death of both of my parents to me, right? There's value in death and making space for the new generation. There's value in that. And not in our culture, though, because we have this meme of infinity. But I'll say one thing that Spengler showed for all three of those civilizations. They start off with a good idea because they were like opposed to like some crap that was, you know, before. So infinity now just seems like, to me, it's a diseased idea. But in 1000 AD, it was a sweet new idea that contrasted with the naysayers who said, oh, everything's a cycle. Why do you want to keep getting better? You know, like, and same with the dome, you know, same with the point present. They were all reactions to, you know, what was going on at the time that was counter to that. And then there was a new, fresh idea. And that new, fresh idea gave birth to a culture that grew into a civilization that lasted 1,000 years. And what he said at the tail end of our, you know, the West, the tail end of the Arabs, and the tail end of the Romans, everything became a clusterfuck of money. There were no values left except money. People wanted power for the sake of power, and they wanted money and money for money's sake. And if you can't see that's what the COVID land was about, that's what the WEF is about, you know, health is not about money. It's not. And the more we can shun it, the more we can shun the money aspect of health, of our beautiful regenerative bodies, I feel like we are more poised for the future. That's dark in a way because it's not only the end of America, it's the end of 1,000-year civilization. But I mean, you got Joe Biden walking out on stage, you know, the other night, and I'm just saying, like, that's the leader of the free world. Yeah, and then of course there's issues with Trump, who's almost his age, but at least Trump walked off on his own 2 feet, didn't have his wife come up and go, well, you answered all the questions. Man. Anyway, now I'm getting into politics. Look, you hear what I got to say. Like, it's our birthright to be healthy, to do practices that cost us nothing, that make us healthy. And I'm just one talking person saying, I don't know if it's true, but fasting seems to have accelerated the slowdown of my aging, which seems like an oxymoron, right? Like it has slowed the hell out of my aging and made me, like I said, I haven't been sick now in 5 years. I don't even knock on wood anymore. It's something to do with the fasting, I feel like. What else could it be? And I'm just saying, like, um, I'm a living example. You can be healthy without money, even on supplements. And I think that's what the next video is going to be. What do I have against supplements? I think that's worthy of an entire video. Anyway, I mean, hopefully this, you got my philosophy in this, like what I'm saying here. And I also saying pump the brakes, what works for me might not work for you. It might work for you, but it might take longer for you than it does for me, but like, or it might be faster. Who knows? Who knows what you are? Maybe you're a magic, bunny too, right? And a more magic one, right? But all I'm saying is know thyself, know what works for you, and do that. Anyway, fun as always, and stay healthy, my friends. And I mean that. Like, I, my wife said to me, "Why do you want to, live over 100?" I'm joking. All your friends will be dead. And I said, "Well, that's why I'm like making friends with people in their 30s and 40s." Um, but I do want actually people who lived my long life to live longer too. So if you're my age and you're watching this video, and you're older even, like, and you're watching any of these, yeah, I really want to meet you. And you know, like, people say, "Oh, please comment, like, and subscribe." Like, I want to comment if you're interested. If you got something interesting to say that can teach me stuff, or you got questions or whatever, like, don't be afraid to, comment. I'll respond. Nobody ever comments on my videos, and I will. I will respond. And I'll say the other reason for that is, like, I get such low viewer count. Another way to say it is, what I'm preaching, be healthy without money. Why isn't YouTube banning my videos? Why isn't it putting like a community note down below, like, hey, go to the CDC to get your advice, not this fucker, sitting behind his computer here. And you know why? Because I have like 11 subscribers, and I have, you know, 1 to 2 dozen views of my videos, right? If I get 11,000 subscribers and I get thousands and hundreds of thousands of views, oh, I expect a little knock on the door. I expect the deep state to shut down this channel. So, that's what I'm saying, is that the money just doesn't want you to be healthy. It really doesn't. It makes money on your unhealth. That's a whole other way to look at it. And I'm just saying, I don't need them. I don't need any of them. I don't need my doctors or my nurses. And I don't need them, but if I'm going to use them, I'll use them. I'll use them, right? Like, go to the teeth cleaning, get a blood test, whatever, right? But I'm just saying, I don't lean on them. I don't think they know or have my interest in mind. That's what I believe. I believe they're malevolent as we used to think lawyers were. Anyway, going on too long. Stay healthy, my friends.